is Nicole Whitney, News for the Soul, life-changing talk radio from the uplifting to the unexplained. And it's a great honor to have you on the show.
News for the Soul is now in its 25th year of broadcasting. Tune in live or visit the archives at newsforthesoul.com. That's newsforthesoul.com. Next on News for the Soul, Light Body Healing with Dr. Lara. Dr. Lara is a functional medicine health coach, an advanced practice clinical pharmacist specialist, master intuitive healer and channel, and international teacher and speaker on a mission to empower you to take an active role in your healing journey to achieve holistic health mastery of the mind, body, and spirit. Dr. Lara combines energy medicine with functional medicine to facilitate healing at the root level. Call in now to speak with Dr. Lara today. 646-595-4274. 646-595-4274. Please welcome Dr. Lara back to News for the Soul.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show today. I'm super excited to bring you our guest, Annie Bush. After spending over 10 years as a federal and state prosecutor, Annie changed her focus to health and wellness education and connecting the physical body with the spiritual mind. Over the last decade, her mantra has been, quote, "It's hard to have a clear thought with a toxic body." As a nationally recognized certified brain health coach under both Dr. Daniel Amen and Dale Bredesen, she helps clear the physical brain of cognitive conditions such as ADD, anxiety, depression, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and dementia, and customizes holistic protocols addressing these conditions. Using the 3x4 genetics, she utilizes your own DNA as your blueprint to drive your lifestyle choices regarding exercise, nutrition, and sleep for your optimal health. She uses photobiomodulation to stimulate the production of your own stem cells, including brain cells, using the LifeWave stem cell activation patches. That sounds fascinating. Welcome, Annie.
Well, thank you so much for having me. We live in exciting times right now when it comes to DNA and stem cells, so I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. So just to get started, tell us how you sort of transitioned from, it seems like a lawyer, over to this groundbreaking health approach.
Well, like most of us in the health and wellness industry, if it was either our own health or a family member's health that kind of like drew us in. And for me, I was an attorney at the time, and both of my parents got cancer. So my father got cancer first, and he passed away, and then my mother got cancer. And it was then that I saw, like, up close and personal how she was being treated by the, quote-unquote, traditional medical community. You know, with cancer, they weren't teaching her, like, what to eat or, you know, what nutrients to take. And I would physically take her over to get her chemotherapy, and there would be, like, baskets of candy and cookies and cupcakes. And I'm like, wait a minute, I don't know much, but I know that cancer feeds off of sugar. So here you are giving her chemo to kill the cancer and sugar to feed it at the same time. And I got frustrated, and then I got angry, and then I decided, you know what, I'm going to do something about this. That's when I switched gears from being an attorney to really, I started off as a personal trainer, then as a health coach, really empowering people to learn about their own health, to get as educated as they can so that they can make the right decisions. And like on a daily basis, what are the best choices that I can make to optimize my own health? So like after that, everybody was somebody's mother, father, daughter, aunt, uncle, you know, that I would come across. You know, and that's where the big switch occurred.
Yeah. As a clinical pharmacist myself, I have no idea why they think that that's the the thing to do because it still happens. Yeah. It's It dumbfounds me, really.
And it was even then, I was still an attorney. I didn't know much. And I was just starting to research things because of the cancer. And I'm like, wait a minute. This is really, really wrong.
Yeah. So let's shift over into, what's going on inside of our cell. And, I think most people have heard that, like your DNA or your genetics determines your sort of like your health and wellness future. So what is our DNA? And then maybe we can address if we both agree that it determines our health and wellness future.
Well, our DNA is basically our divinely designed blueprint. So when you were born, here is your health blueprint. You get so many genes. We have 25,000 genes that can create over 3 or 4 million different variations. And each one of us, there's 99.9% of us, we're all the same. And then these variations that we get, one snip from our mother and one from our father, we get 2 sets of genes. So we inherit certain characteristics, genetic predispositions from our parents, from our mother and father. But it's that 1% difference of these 3 and 4 million different variations that make us who we are. And I partnered with 3x4 Genetics because what they have taken is those 25,000 genes and put them into different categories based on the pathways that will really influence your health, your inflammation, your ability to detoxify, what exercises are best for you, what foods are best for you, what foods was your body designed to absorb. And it's sort of like once I got my DNA done, it made so much sense as to how my body was reacting when I was eating certain foods, how my body was reacting when I was attempting to do certain exercises. And we'll get into more detail about this later, but your DNA is basically your blueprint of what you're going to be most efficient in doing. And it's more of a cause and effect. We're going to use one quick example. I was eating a very ketogenic diet, which included animal saturated fat. And I enjoyed it tremendously, but my stomach was having a hard time digesting it. And I was thinking, well, I'm just not making enough stomach acid. I will just go take some enzymes when I eat, grass-fed beef. I get my DNA back. And here I have vascular markers and SNPs all through my DNA. The worst thing I can be doing for my health is eating animal saturated fat. Because it's what's driving my inflammation. So that's just one example of, so now I know with that little bit, just one piece of information, that if I choose to, this is what the drivers are for us to be able to make better decisions on a day-to-day basis. If I decide to have bacon and sausage for breakfast, it is going to trigger the inflammation and affect my vascular system. So it's very cause and effect. If I do this, then genetically my body's designed to do that. And that way we can then make the best decisions for us every day once we know what our own personal blueprints are. So is it our destiny? No, because we can decide what genes we're going to literally turn on or we're going to keep silent. Right? And it's, and when you turn on a gene, it stimulates the production of proteins and enzymes and amino acids. So it's basically the first switch in that whole chain of biochemical responses that your body makes. So those initial decisions are pretty important. So so your blueprint is what it is, but you get to decide what you're going to do with that information.
Right. So I want everyone out there to have at least this, if you take away nothing else from today, that you understand that your DNA is a blueprint and it can carry with it some predispositions. I like that you use that word, but it is not written in stone destiny. There are less than 5% of disorders across the planet, across human beings, that are actual genetic malfunctions or things that will literally lead to a destined outcome. Everything else you have control of.
Absolutely. There are very, 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 very few genes that if you have them, you are destined for whatever. No.
Right.
And that's what Dr. Yael Joffe of 3X4, she's really changing the way that she's shifting the paradigm as how we think about our DNA. We don't have quote unquote good or bad genes. We don't have mutations in our genes. They're just who we are. And either they have a high impact on our life or they have a very low impact. And that's how the report, when you get a 3X4 report, that's how it's set out. That here's all these factors, and they are either going to have a very high impact on your health, so pay attention, or they have a very low impact, so you don't have to be so concerned. So that you can really decide, what your priority is going to be in the choices that you make as far as, eating and drinking and exercise.
Right. So I think the other thing that's important to point out so people have maybe a little deeper understanding is that it's the environment around this genetic information that determines whether it's, quote, turned on or turned off. So let's say like you are bombarded by toxins every day, or you have a super stressful job or family life. All of that is what is signaling the genes and the genetic material and the proteins to turn on and off, to bond or not bond, to, create the inflammation, to have an inflammation response or not. So that's why when we talk about food, lifestyle, all those things, it really is within your power to decide and to choose what outcome will happen or not happen. You know what I mean?
Oh, exactly.
I'm sure you can say it better than I can.
No, that was perfect. That was absolutely perfect. It's the epigenetics, which are those environmental factors, and nutrigenomics is the influence of food. What foods will, what certain foods will turn on those genes. Your inflammatory genes, you eat this certain food, it's going to switch on that inflammatory gene. Or you choose to just not eat it, and then it doesn't turn on the gene, and you're good. Right. And that's why it's so important to know. We did a case review yesterday of this woman that was having all these inflammatory conditions and detoxification issues. And here she was, she worked at cleaning houses. So she was exposed to all these cleaning solvents and chemicals in her body, and she wasn't wearing any protective gear. So she was absorbing this, from breathing through her skin. And we looked at her detoxification pathways, and she was struggling there. And so when she saw that, she's like, I shouldn't be cleaning houses. Or if I am, I should be using more natural products. So all she did was switch over to natural products that didn't have those chemicals, so that epigenetically in her environment, she wasn't exposing herself to them.
Right. And so are some of those pathways, like the MTHFR, SNP, that's one of them, right? That helps your detox mechanism?
Yeah, the MTHFR is one of the genes that are in the methylation pathways, or in the detoxification pathways, or in the inflammation pathways. Different genes will show up in different pathways depending on how big of an impact they have in those. But that's the one thing is, there is no one villain gene out there that's going to control. We really want to look at these genes, how they synergistically react to one another. Because you can have one that has a high impact, and then you have other ones that are beneficial that can kind of soften the blow of some of them. So, you see, Dr. Jaffe always talks about, you look at the magazines on the grocery, and there's a fat gene and there's a longevity gene and there's no single gene out there that is going to, have that big of an effect. You really have to look at your genes in sequence and synergistically how they interact with each other.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's like an orchestra. It's not a soloist.
Exactly.
If we wanted to have a musical analogy,
right.
And nothing in our body happens in a vacuum. It's all happening in concert. Mm-hmm.
And you are the conductor.
Right.
You are the conductor, my dear. Yeah. So some of the different pathways that we look at as, the big ones, the inflammation, the detoxification, the methylation. But then how does your body respond to exercise? For me personally, genetically, if I needed to lose weight, exercising would not be the most efficient way for me to do it because my body has a hard time releasing fat from exercise. For me to lose weight, it's going to be more by caloric restriction and intermittent fasting. So let's just say you're out listening to us today and you really want to lose weight and you've been exercising and exercising and exercising and you're not losing the weight. Genetically, that might not be the most efficient way for you to do it. Mm-hmm. And also in the exercise pathways, they tell you what type of exercise is the most efficient. So for me, it's the activation of those slow twitch muscles. It's endurance. It's the marathon rather than the sprints. It's the powerlifting rather than 2 hours in the gym doing circuits. So that's the other, That's so genetically your body is designed to efficiently do certain types of movements. And when you go outside of those kind of, I don't want to use the word recommendations, but those, that blueprint, you're more prone to injury. Mm-hmm. So if you're an athlete, and you always injure yourself when you do a certain exercise and you see your genetics, my body wasn't designed to do that exercise or that sport. Like for me, I've always struggled doing anything that was quick. Like me and tennis don't get along. We really don't. Because it's fast, quick movements. And now that I've seen my DNA, now I understand why. I wasn't built to play tennis.
Yeah, I'm sure I would see the same. I'm a distance athlete and always have been, growing up as a competitive swimmer, no matter, like the best I could hope for is, like being in a relay team if I had to sprint. Because on my own, it just wasn't going to cut it.
But see, intuitively you know that, and I think intuitively we know what we're designed to do. And then when we go outside of that, that's when our body starts sending us those little signs, right, especially from our digestion or we're tweaking muscles or whatever, that we're doing something that we weren't really designed to do.
Yeah. Can we talk about some food stuff? Because I will just say, I have discovered through the years that I'm actually allergic to casein, which is one of the proteins in dairy products. And again, it was one of those things I figured out by doing an elimination style diet. And then later I had my genetics evaluated and, there was confirmation there. But I have to say, especially as a healthcare practitioner, both in functional medicine and Western medicine, it is so frustrating to me when I tell people I don't eat dairy and they're like, "Oh, are you lactose intolerant?" No. There are so many other things out there than just exactly. Lactose is just a sugar that requires an enzyme, right?
Right, and then there's and it's caseins of protein. Well, interesting. Did you say you did have your DNA done?
I did, yes. But I am curious to maybe work with you on this test too, just to see how the data is presented in a different way, because I think that's the other thing that is probably important to talk about is there's, you have 23andMe, you have Ancestry, you have all these different ways to have your DNA tested, but the real information will come to you as a raw data download. And so the way, yeah. So I think it's important for people to know that once you have your raw data, then there's a variety of databases that you can put it into that will spit the information out at you in different ways so you can understand it in different ways too. And it's really helpful to work with a practitioner that understands what they're looking at to help you interpret it and make sense of it.
Exactly, because the 23andMe's and the Ancestries are consumer products. Mm-hmm. And they're designed to tell you about your parents and your grandparents and who your cousins are and whatnot. They're not designed to explain your health. And that's why with companies like 3x4, and you want to go through a company that you have to go through a practitioner for this very reason that you just stated, because you have to explain the data. It like you said, it's that orchestra. You have to understand how it's all working together. Now, we're going to get back to your casein issue. And you probably don't know this off the top of your head, or maybe you do, whether they tested your HLA, which is the SNP for gluten.
Right. I am a heterozygous for HLA. So
okay.
Yeah. So not full blown, but partial. So I am sensitive to gluten, but I'm not full blown celiac.
Okay. Because casein is very similar molecularly to gluten. They call it molecular mimicry, that your body reacts the same way. So if you're sensitive to, so if you're sensitive to gluten and you eat dairy, you may, and this is what happens with people that go gluten-free, and they're eating and they're still having digestive issues and they're still eating dairy because their body's reacting to the casein the same way it would react to the gluten.
Right. Yes. That's one of the things that I talk about in just like when I talk about my story and my evolution and how I transitioned from Western medicine to a functional medicine practice was my own health struggle with figuring out what was going on, because I knew I had IBS and I ignored it, but finally I decided to try this whole whatever this gluten thing is at the time. It was like back in 2012 to 14. It was when it was first coming out really into the forefront of discussion and media, what is this whole gluten-free thing? And so that was my first step. And then, like you said, I was still having digestive things. So then I kept reading and exploring, and so I tried the dairy. And the dairy for me was the big, huge turnaround in terms of all the other things it was causing in my system: acne, sinus infections, migraines, all the things.
Oh, yeah. Yep, dairy will do all those. And it's funny, I laughed. You kind of ignored it at first. And that's what we all do. It'll go away. It's, we make excuses because we like eating. We like the taste of whatever we're eating, so we kind of tolerate the results. But, that's our body's way of telling us that, no, you shouldn't be eating this. So continuing with mine, and you'll find the humor in this, I'm eating ketogenic diet, and I get my DNA back, no more animal saturated fat for you. I'm like, okay, I can do this. I'm a big girl. I can give up my bacon and my grass-fed beef. I'm good. Well, further down my little DNA journey, I have histamine overload issues, which means my body's not clearing the histamines and they're building up. So I'm like, histamines, that sounds like allergic reactions. I don't have allergic reactions. So I look up what the histamine-causing foods are, and lo and behold, at the top of the list is avocados. And I'm eating keto. So I'm eating at least one avocado a day. So here I am eating avocados because they're, in the world, they're healthy. They're a good, healthy fat. It's ketogenic eating. And here I am just building up my own internal inflammation by what I was eating. And walnuts, which is one of my favorite nuts because it's good for your brain. So here I am eating avocados and walnuts every day and grass-fed beef and bacon on a weekly basis going, oh, my gosh. Sooner or later, all of this would have really caught up with me. So it's really good that I caught it now.
Yeah. So in light of that, I'm glad you brought these things up because I've also had my own journey with histamine intolerance. What is your opinion of, because there's different products out there that are sort of like enzymatic supplements. So they help support your body to actually clear the histamine. So what do you think about those?
I actually, since I just got my DNA done like a week and a half ago, I've ordered the products, and one is a probiotic because there are certain probiotics that will help clear the histamines better. Am I allowed to say brand names?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. It's Seeking Health Probiota Histamine X.
Yes.
And then the other one is Seeking Health Histamine Blocker are the two that we recommend. And like I said, I just ordered them. Yes.
Yeah, so those are also products that I order for my clients too. So Seeking Health is a great brand out there for anyone looking for a really solid and a brand that has great integrity and really, is trusted, can be trusted for it is what it says on the bottle,
which is good.
And is actually effective. How nice that is.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, effectiveness is great.
So, yeah, and then some of the other, food type stuff, I am somebody that clears caffeine very quickly, so I can have caffeine later in the day and it doesn't affect my ability to sleep. But if you had a client that was having trouble sleeping and say they were having 2 cups of coffee, say one at 8 in the morning and say one at 11, that one at 11, if they don't clear caffeine, could be the thing that's interfering with their ability to sleep. But you wouldn't know that unless genetically you could see how their body clears caffeine.
Mhm.
Yeah,
how that's a great one.
Yeah, I didn't even when I saw that, I'm like, this is what I love because this information is so actionable. These are. You can use this information to decide what to have for breakfast, what to have for lunch. Am I going to have, decaf tea now starting in the afternoon? And there's other pathways that have to do with your appetite and satiety because we were talking about food. I'm somebody that it takes very little food for me to feel satisfied. It's that satiety factor. Whereas some people, they eat and they're still hungry. We're talking those leptin and ghrelin issues.
Mhm.
Right. So you can find that out from your genetics. That will explain why. Yeah. Why am I always hungry? I don't know if you hear that from your clients. Why am I always hungry? We think sometimes that it's blood sugar regulation, but here it may be this ghrelin leptin issue.
Right, or maybe even the APOE pathway in terms of the fat metabolism. Because if your body isn't, metabolizing the fat appropriately, then it's not available for fuel, right? Because fats ultimately break down into glucose. So yeah. So it's definitely multifactorial. Mm-hmm.
Right, and especially that APOE status, you do want to know how vulnerable you are to things like cognitive decline and Alzheimer's, because you do become more vulnerable, which only means that you have to have like a sit down with yourself and say, okay, I need to clean up my eating. I need to lower my carbohydrates or whatever that discussion you're going to need to have with yourself based on what your DNA shows you. It's either you're going to use it or you're ignoring it, or you're going to choose to ignore it. But at least you can say you were told. At least you're informed. But I realize that you have to meet your clients where they are. And, let's start taking baby steps. Let's start making one change based on your DNA to start cleaning up some of these pathways. You know, I have two different groups of clients. I have the ones that just will jump in, do everything I tell. They like, let's just do it all. And then other folks, and I met with one this morning, you know, we just have to take it one step at a time, just one change at a time. But all those little changes over time have a big impact.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, it's almost like it should be mandatory. It's, you know, and that's, I don't like to say it that way, but it's like this is baselining information. Like when you go to have your first physical, you know, when you're a kid, you should have your DNA done.
Yeah, I mean, if only they would start teaching it in medical school, then maybe we could have like a real shift in
right.
medicine in general. You know, it could be more personalized instead of, you know, the compartmentalization of just organ systems.
Right. Or, you know, right. It's, you know, cookie cutter, here, you're tired, here, take this. You're hungry, take that. You need to lose weight, take this. And we are all so individual. And why it's, you know, but I think the paradigm shift is occurring. That we are getting, I think people are now tired of all being put into the same basket and realizing that they need answers. I think people want answers now as to why they're not getting well.
When they show up to the doctor and they don't fit in a certain box, they're told, "Oh, there's nothing wrong with you." Like, well, I'm here telling you that there is something going on. Will you help me investigate it? And usually the answer is no. Unfortunately.
You know, as being in the functional space, thyroid is a perfect example.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the standard blood tests for, you know, blood labs for thyroid, it's like 2 markers, your TSH and your T4. Until you get those 10 markers, you don't know what's going on with your thyroid.
Yeah.
But what I learned, because I just got done working under the tutelage of a functional neurologist for over a year, that if a doctor does not know how to interpret a test result, that they are committing malpractice by even ordering it. So if you ask your doctor to, and we're going off on a little tangent here, but if you ask your doctor to run a certain test and they either say no or you don't need it, that's shorthand for saying, I don't know how to interpret it. I don't know what to do with the results, so I can't order it. So go find another doctor.
Well, I wish they would just say that.
I know, exactly.
Right? I wish they would just be honest and like state where they're limited, and that's fine. We all have limitations.
Right.
And then refer us to someone that does know.
Right. There's many things that I can do now. I mean, I can order blood labs. I can order practitioner supplements. I can do this. I can order DNA tests and analysis. But I know what I don't know, and I can, when I see it, I can recognize it, and I know when the referral needs to be made.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, this is out. Right. This is outside my hula hoop. This is above my pay grade. However you want to say it, it's knowing when you see it, you know, you need to see someone else about this.
Right, and I do that all the time too. Yeah, people come to me with their questions, and I will answer them to the best of my ability and then immediately say, but I'm not the best person for you. I know a specialist in this area that would really serve you a lot better than I could, because this is what they do all day long. Yeah.
Right. You know, it's things like mold exposure and Lyme disease and all those, you know, more complicated conditions that you want somebody who's been doing that kind of stuff for a long time.
Yeah, or fertility issues. You want, somebody that knows the ins and outs of it. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, my, yes. That's right. And so, you know, so for a doctor to say, oh, no, you don't need that test, you're fine, realize it's because he or she doesn't know what to do with that information, and they're just kindly trying to get you away because they don't know the answers.
Yeah. And it's funny that you brought up the thyroid, because I was in that position several years ago where I was frustrated, so I ordered my own tests and the full panel, and including an iodine level. And so I got the test back, which did have some very interesting information on it. I took it to my doctor's partner, so the doctor that I normally see wasn't there that day. And so this was a practitioner that really didn't know me at all. And she looked at me, she looked at the test, and she just said, well, I think this proves there's nothing wrong. And I was so livid. And because, again, like, see just where her limitation was. And instead of just saying, you know, I'm not sure what to do with these numbers, let me send you to a specialist, she just infuriated me.
Yeah.
So,
you know, I had somebody show up, they brought like a micronutrient panel to me. And, you know, I'm a very upstream person. It's like we need to get to the root cause before we start looking at micronutrients and nutrients. And so I've never been trained on how to analyze them and figure them out because that's way downstream of where I've been. You know, let's go upstream and start looking at these big things first. But I told her, I says, you know what, it would take me weeks to take a course to figure out how to interpret these results. You're going to need to find someone else that knows how to do it. You know, but, you know, when was the last time you had your thyroid checked? You know, let's start there.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, and that's really good advice, too, I think, for everyone out there. Sorry, I keep interrupting you because you just keep saying such good things. So if you, again, like you're like me and just take matters into your hands, or you have a practitioner that is ordering certain things for you, like a micronutrient panel, that's great information. But again, if you don't have the background of your, you know, your genetic SNPs, your detox pathways, all of the different things you're going to tell you, like which foods your body is absorbing and readily absorbing or not, then, you know, the isolated information of the micronutrients maybe cannot be addressed in the most effective way right off the bat. So the micronutrient panel is fabulous information, but it needs some, again, like the chorus around it to really put that information to work.
You know, it's like you're demonstrating autoimmune signs and symptoms. Okay, what's the foundational condition for autoimmune is leaky gut. All right, so let's just start right there. We got to get your gut healthy. We're not going to look at anything else. We're just going to get your intestinal lining all healed up. We're going to get rid of the permutations. We're going to get rid of your leaky gut. We're going to start getting you absorbing the nutrients that we're about to give you, but we have to deal with that first. You know, so there's some very, you know, when you talk about root causes, your DNA is right there. That's where you start, because that's going to explain why things are happening. And then you build, just like, you know, a blueprint, you build from the foundation up. You're going to use that as your foundation. Yeah. And then if you want, you know, like, you know, with the histamine foods even, let's say I really want to be able to eat avocados again. Well, I'm going to have to clear out my system for a while and then reintroduce them on a very infrequent basis. It's going to be like my little treat now. Maybe it's going to be an avocado. You know what I mean? But we have to respect the bodies that we were given.
Absolutely. And so,
So when we do, you know, once we have it, you know, so probably all your listeners was like, I don't want to know. I just want to keep eating what I'm going to eat. But then you're still going to keep experiencing the constipation, the diarrhea, the IBS, the gas, the bloating, the migraines, the achy joints. And then you're going to go to your doctor and expect him or her to give you a pill to make it go away.
Yeah. Yep.
Whereas No, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, but then, you know, what, and this is one of the reasons that I branched out of just, you know, Western medicine clinical pharmacy, is because I got tired of seeing patients that were just on this menagerie of medications that there was no end in sight. Like, this was going to be the rest of their life with these medications, because they weren't being given any tools or information to help themselves get better and get off of the medications. And almost all of the meds out there in the entire world, which is a huge amount, almost all of them are designed to be short-term solutions. They are used as long-term solutions, but that is not what they were designed to do, which is also why then we have the degradation of health in general over time as we age, because, again, we're not helping support ourselves through the process of just getting older. And then we're taking these drugs, which in most cases are leaching things out of our system and preventing our bodies from absorbing or making the key things that it needs to maintain a healthy, sustained life. And so I would say almost all the diseases out there are a product of acute on chronic inflammation that has gone unchecked, that just continues to degrade our system.
Right, and like something you just touched on is that the medication is depleting our bodies of certain nutrients. Mm-hmm. Especially like your B vitamins and your vitamin C, depending on what the nutrient is. And we saw this a lot at the Institute, that people would come in with their list of medications. Well, most of them were on some sort of antidepressant and something to help them sleep. Guess what happens with those two medications? It degrades your cognition. Mm-hmm. So they were developing cognitive decline because of the medications that they were taking.
Right.
Specifically antidepressants are really horrible for your cognition. And then on top of that, depleting their systems of those vital nutrients. And I don't think people really have a handle on that as to the long-term. It's so funny because you have the drug, and here's the side effect, but the side effect has the long-term effects.
Oh, yeah. I mean, statins are a perfect example of that,
too.
My gosh. Statins, they both increase your risk for diabetes and Alzheimer's. And so what are we seeing now with patients that have been on statins since they first came on the market? More diabetes and more Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
And then what does that do? That feeds back into their heart disease. It's like, really? Come on. This is the best we can come up with?
Right. Not to mention the hormones. Exactly. It's like, and it's, you could get very deep in the weeds with this stuff, but bottom line, it's just common sense. It's just taking that step back. It's the
looking at the DNA.
Right. Well, it's right, and that statins are not a good thing.
Yes.
Your brain is made of cholesterol. So if you take a drug that lowers your cholesterol, guess what's going to happen to your brain? It's going to shrink. Those just A leading to B, leading to C, leading to D. And that's why it's so important for people to get educated. If you have a condition, really work with somebody, a functional, integrative doctor that is going to look at your body as a whole and all the systems and how the systems work together, and and really do a root cause analysis before you start, going to those itty bitty little things that, it'll make you feel good for a day or two, but if you don't deal with that big thing, it's going to come back.
Yeah. So to get tested, do people go to like practitioners like you and do the 3x4 genetic test?
Right. So I am certified by 3x4. So all they need to do is contact me. And what the sequence of how it occurs is the kit. It's a saliva swab. The kit gets sent directly to them. They do their swab instructions, like you can't eat or drink and all that for so long. They'll do the swab and then send a kit back to 3x4. It will go to the lab for analysis. Then when the report is ready, I will get it. I will do my analysis, and then I will get with a senior member, and this is for everybody that works with 3x4, that there's always a second set of eyeballs on the analysis to make sure nothing's missed. And then I get back together with the client, and we get on a Zoom. If they're local, we'll get together personally, but usually it's by Zoom. We'll go through the report, and then the client gets the report. And the reports are just set out. They're amazing. There's summary pages. Things are grouped together by nutrition and exercise. They're very, very, very easy to understand. But then there's also all the SNPs are listed. If they're high impact, very high impact. So for those of us, the practitioners, can go into each individual SNP and dig out some of the other important information that needs to be added in. So it's easy enough. The summary pages are easy enough for everyone to understand and be able to implement, and then you can get as detailed as you want into the individual SNPs.
Okay. So if people have already done their genetic testing with a different service, is there a way for them to send you their raw data and for you guys to use their raw data from a different test, or is that possible?
I have not heard if 3X4 will do that. I can check into it.
Okay, just curious.
Yeah, this is the first, and I've heard people do that with like their ancestry and their whatnot. I don't know if 3X4 does that or not, but I can check into it.
Okay. And then the one thing that I am curious about that we haven't talked about are the LifeWave stem cell patches. How do those work?
Well, there's two different kind of modalities that are going on at the same time with the patches. So the first is photobiomodulation. And the easiest way to explain how that works is when you go out into the sun, there's a certain wavelength of light that hits from the sun that hits your skin. And when it hits your skin, there's like this little biochemical reaction that converts that wavelength to vitamin D. You don't have to do anything. It's just that's how divinely designed we are, that when that wavelength hits, it gets converted. Well, David Schmidt, who's the CEO and creator of the LifeWave patches, was first commissioned by the U.S. Navy SEALs to come up with some way to keep the Navy SEALs alert and focused during their long missions, but without stimulants or drugs. But it had the way to keep them focused, the source of the energy had to be within themselves because they're out in these like remote locations. They can't be lugging around batteries or supplements or whatever. So David Schmidt came up with the patch. It's a non-transdermal patch. So I want everybody to envision a Band-Aid that's round and about an inch in diameter. And the center of the Band-Aid is crystals. It's a crystal matrix. And when you put the patch on, let me step back. The second modality is our bodies are made of pathways. They're called meridians, if you're familiar with acupuncture. And all along these pathways, and it's sort of, like DNA, you have these pathways of energy that connect your nervous system and your organs that run all through your body. So when you take these patches and you put them at the meridian openings and certain points on your body, like everybody's familiar with like the bottom of your feet. The bottom of your feet have some of the biggest openings into your meridians. You put the patch there, and then your body heat hits the crystals that creates the wavelength of light that goes back into your body to activate certain processes. And the stem cell activation patch actually activates a copper peptide called GHKCU. And by activating this copper peptide, you activate stem cell production. So you are literally creating a whole new set of stem cells as soon as you put that patch on. So for people that aren't familiar with stem cells, imagine you're a little kid and you scrape your knee. Once you do that, the stem cells rush to that scraped knee to start creating the new skin. That's what stem cells do. And when you use your own, and your skin, here we go back to your skin, is the biggest source of your own stem cells. So they're like little baby cells that don't know what they're going to be when they grow up. So, and as adults, we make far less stem cells as we get older, especially when you get over 60. You're hardly making any new ones at all. And they're so slow, by the time you twist your ankle, by the time the stem cells get there, they may not be very effective. So that's why it takes so long for you to heal as you get older. So these stem cells, once you put one of the patches on, the stem cells know exactly where they need to go to repair, whether it's your liver, your kidneys, your leaky gut, your brain cells. They will go to the site where there's the most inflammation that needs the most repair. The science shows that if you wear the stem cell activation patches, and you wear one a day, that after 6 months, you have reversed your cellular age by 8 years.
Wow, that's cool.
Yes. So that actually you're repairing and replacing your cells. Whether, and people are like, well, I don't know. Well, you put that patch on, it's repairing something. It's going somewhere and repairing something. So for me, it's like, of course, I look in the mirror and I'm like, well, I want to get rid of my wrinkles, right? That's my signs of aging. I want to get rid of. But no joke, after a few weeks, my quote unquote brown age spots started fluffing off. And underneath them was brand new skin. It was creating new skin from those deep down layers, just not surface, but deep down. So that's what the stem cell patches are all about. And then within that same technology, that non-transdermal patch. So there is nothing that's being transpatched into your body except that wavelength.
Oh, okay.
And there's ones that reduce inflammation. There's ones that activate your glutathione pathways. So this is how it works together with the DNA. Is if you need support with your detoxification pathways, you need support with your methylation pathways, and you do have glutathione SNPs, that you'll be able to use these patches to increase your body's production of glutathione. So, yeah,
that's
it's pretty. This is the cutting edge, and what I love about these patches is there's no drugs involved. There's no side effects. There's no contraindications. People are getting stem cells injections. They're traveling out of the country and spending thousands and thousands of dollars. And interesting enough, Tony Robbins in his book Life Force talks about him traveling to Panama or wherever, getting these stem cell injections into his rotator cuff. But the injected stem cells clear the body within 3 or 4 days. And what he says is after.
Yeah.
Right.
Keep going.
But there's a small amount of stem cells that remain, and what they do is activate your own stem cells, and that's where the magic is. And that's basically what these patches do, is just activating your own stem cells. So you don't have to worry about getting something injected into you that you didn't know where it came from, what it's going to turn into. It takes all that guesswork out of it because you're creating your own.
Right. Well, and the reason that people have to travel outside of the U.S. to get stem cell injections is because the FDA put the kibosh on it. So even though, a lot of people were having their own harvested, and this is just a little snitch of a background, and then we have to wrap up. But for people that are curious about the stem cell process, because the potential of stem cells is really exciting and powerful when it comes to healing and healthcare for a variety of things. We're not just talking about joints, but it could autoimmune, a variety of ailments. But the harvesting of your own stem cells, especially like you said, as we get older, one of the places that we have to go is bone marrow. That's one of the places. And then, so that's a process. And then once you have them, then there's a process of getting them to multiply and get ready to re-inject them into your body. So there were some places in the U.S. that were doing this a few years ago. The FDA put the kibosh on it. And so now there are places in Panama. I don't know if there's any in Mexico. Yeah, okay, so there are still some in Mexico. So it's, Tony Robbins, Joe Rogan, Ben Greenfield, those are the people. So there are very reputable people that whether you consider Joe Rogan reputable, but he's an athlete,
right,
and he has, a good testimonial. There was someone else that had his 80-year-old dad do it, and I'm blanking on who that is. A famous person that did it for himself and then also had his 80-year-old dad do it for, I'm not sure why.
That sounds like Tony Robbins, because I think he took his dad down to the clinic down in Naples initially with back issues, because my husband's a golfer. Went to Germany, but here's the deal with the patches. It's a fraction of the cost. You're stimulating your own, and there isn't all these injections and foreign travel and all of this, So it makes it very accessible and very doable for anyone.
Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on today and for all of the information. And real quickly, while we wrap up, tell everyone where they can find you so they can start doing the testing.
Yes, the easiest way to contact me is just email me, because we talk about a lot of different things. It's yourtotalbody@yahoo.com. Again, my company name is Your Total Body, so that's the email. It's yourtotalbody@yahoo.com. That's the easiest way, and just, shoot me an email and say, hey, I heard you on Dr. Lara's program. Talk to me about stem cells. Talk to me about DNA. Or you can find me on Facebook. Just search Annie Bush, and you'll find me there.
Yes. And so for all of you out there, there's always a show notes page that I put on my website at drlaramay.com is the website. And if you just go over to the podcast link, you'll find all the show notes for all the different episodes. And so you'll find Annie's email and the link to her website there, and just a brief overview of the show, just to give you some idea of what we spoke about too. So definitely head on over there. And thank you guys so much for tuning in today. Thank you, Annie, for being on the show. This was fascinating. And
thank you for having me.
Yeah, you're so welcome. I think we'd love to have you back so we can dig more into this, because I feel like we just scratched the surface.
We did. It was a nice overview, but yeah, we can get as deep in the weeds as you want.
Yes. All right. So I think we're already having some requests for more details on the body fat relationship with the DNA. So we'll have to schedule that follow-up for later on in the summer.
Sounds awesome.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Bye, Annie.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hear all of our previously aired broadcasts of News for the Soul online at newsforthesoul.com. Now let's get back to the show.